I mean, you really don't believe that the state we live in, California, is lacking regulation. There's over 300,000 regulations. I mean, I once
Well, maybe they're needed.
they're not. When I tried to put in a garage door, I had to have 3 inspections. There should have been none. I
Mm.
should be allowed to change my garage door
Are
without.
you kidding? Really? It was about a garage door?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that is.
No, you know this about California. Come
No,
on.
I don't.
Well,
I'm
then
sorry. I don't.
Jane Fonda takes on Bill Maher in a heated debate where the gloves come off over California's regulations, climate policy, and the so-called far-left craziness. Maher's firing off his usual too much government complaints, but Jane, she's calling him out at every turn. Let's break this one down. I'll be putting my input when it makes sense, so let's get into it.
you've never heard that California is overtaxed and overregulated? That we are a one-party state where there's sort of no checks on that sort of extreme leftism. And that what do you think
I don't for a minute consider California a state that is extreme leftist. Not at all. Not any way.
well, that shows where your politics are. That's not where mine are. I'm sorry to tell you, is because that been saying this on my show. There is 2 parts of the Trump coalition. There's about a third of this country who always loved the hard right wing.
Hmm.
That's the Birch Society. We're old enough to remember the John Birch Society.
I had family members who were John Birch.
Really?
Hmm.
Okay. And these were people who were happy when Kennedy got assassinated. They became the birthers. They became the Tea Party. There's about a third of this country that's very hard right. Of course, they love Trump. When he left office, he had an approval rating of 34%. So he really only had those people.
Hmm.
Why is he now like tied? Because the other part of the coalition are people who they don't really like him that much. They just think the far left has gone so nutty on so many issues.
That's what they're being told
That's what
by people like you.
because it's true. You think the far left does nothing crazy?
Oh, I'm sure they do.
Because it's true is the weakest argument ever, Bill. That's like saying, trust me, bro. Of course, there are fringe elements on the left, just like there are on the right. But here's the thing. The loudest voices don't represent the majority. It's like judging old conservatives based off Marjoe Taylor Greene tweets. If we're gonna call out craziness, let's at least aim at something more substantial than strawman arguments.
Oh, well then,
But I don't know. Who is the far left? What do you mean when you say far left?
I mean, I could give you a million
Yeah,
examples.
well, give me one.
Okay, the NAACP.
You think the NAACP is far
Could I
left?
finish my sentence?
Yes.
You asked me for an example.
Yeah.
The NAACP last year issued a travel advisory. That's like the State Department does to go to, I'm sure when you went to Vietnam, they were advising you not to. There's a war on.
I didn't talk to them. I don't have no.
I know, but a travel advisory.
Yeah.
Today we have them for very dangerous countries.
Yeah.
Don't go to North Korea. Don't go to Iran.
Yeah.
You know where they issued a travel advisory for Black people not to go?
Yeah.
Florida. Every day there's stories like that just makes people roll their eyes and go, are you people nuts? Even if they don't matter that much, I don't think one person listened to this and thought, I can't go to Florida. But they just suggest something to the average person, which I completely understand, which is, wow, do you people ever find anything that's ridiculous? Do you really think men can get pregnant? That kind of stuff. And I understand that a trans woman can get pregnant. That's different than a man getting pregnant. And the way they sort of insist on blurring that line is if that's some sort of reasonable social cause, as opposed to just being for having full rights, respect, and protection for trans people. We get that.
So I've never heard about men getting pregnant. I've never heard about this argument. It must be some part of what you call the far left that is so minuscule that I, who am.
No, Jane.
What?
It's not minuscule, and I'm sorry, you can't throw this back on us. I assume it's because you are locked into media that just never wants anyone in their audience to know anything sketchy about the blue team.
Well,
And
I mean, I don't know. I read 2 papers, and maybe I don't. I should watch Fox News more,
No,
I guess.
I don't watch that's too far. But you don't have to. That's I mean, I'm not gonna torture myself.
I'm for the team that understands that everybody should have the same opportunities, that everybody should
So
be
am
able to
I.
attain a middle class life,
That's right.
that
Yes. That's not what we're talking about.
childcare should be. I mean,
Yeah,
this
sure.
isn't far left,
No,
and
that isn't. It's interesting. The Democratic politicians, generally in this country, are not far left. They don't stand up to the crazy when they hear it. That's true. But they themselves, like after 2020, a big rallying cry was defund the police. You remember that?
yeah, I was critical of that.
Okay. Okay. And so were most Democratic politicians. The Republicans
I know
try.
where it comes from, though. I mean, I understand where the desire to do something about a police force that all too often is willing to shoot black people. But
Well,
defund the police, I knew was a very bad political slogan.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot we could unpack there, but that certainly has been the history of this country. Was police who were all too willing to shoot black people. Um, so defund the police, though, was not a good idea. And you know who mostly didn't think it was a good idea was black people, because they want police in their neighborhoods, probably more than we need them in ours. Uh, So, but the Republicans tried to catch the Democrats with this, and they put this on, they brought it up in Congress,
Yeah.
and all the Democrats voted against it. The Democratic politicians were not for
Mm.
defunding the police. It's
Okay, this is where Bill tries to sound reasonable, but it's a bit of a half truth. Yes, most Democratic politicians didn't support defund the police, but the slogan caught fire because of real issues in policing, especially in black communities. Instead of mocking the slogan, maybe let's dig into why it resonated with so many people. And let's not forget, Republicans love to deflect from their own failures by using slogans like this to scare voters. They're not solving problems either, Bill.
that radical fringe that has captured a lot of the media, academia, some of these cultural institutions that are not liberal anymore by my old school liberalism. The ACLU was all about free speech. They don't really believe in it anymore. They believe, I mean, in one of their chief people who is trans said, I will die on this hill of banning this book, which was a very reasonable book about a subject that's still debatable.
What was the subject of the book?
How we should treat kids who say they are trans,
Oh, yeah.
you know, which is one of those issues, I think, which is, uh, there's a centrist position that's like, yes, of course, it's a real thing that we should deal with, but we are a country that does it in a way no other country does anymore.
How so?
Um, allowing the no age limits and do it by self-diagnosis of the child and make it illegal in some places to tell the parent if the kid is in school and has transitioned using a different name and so forth. I've heard them say it's outing the child. Outing to a parent? I think a parent should be able to know pretty much what their kid's doing.
Yeah, normally, yeah. There are probably situations where the parents, maybe the child is being incested, or
That is why
yeah.
they do it, because
But you know what I feel? I feel like you're taking a problem that exists. There is somewhere some pretty dismissible and far left thing, and you're making it a big issue, and I don't think it is.
this is the argument people say, and my answer to that is, I don't think you know. You're saying I don't know. I think you don't know how pervasive some of this stuff is, and you're right. Many schools, it's just like school was sort of in our day. I do hear I talk to parents, and some of them say that, but there's also undeniable. You can see, like, you don't need a filter of any sort of media to see teachers who are making TikToks and telling you about how they conduct their class and so forth. And it would, I imagine my parents would not approve of some of that stuff. And
Mhm.
it's okay. it's okay. We want to have a world where the kids understand um, that it's okay to be whatever you are, gay, trans, black, white. This is old school liberalism. It's another thing to sort of put out the idea so much that you might not be the default setting. There is a default setting. That doesn't mean it's better. It's just a
No,
different
I don't understand what you mean when
male and female.
Mhm.
Like
What's the default setting is?
that babies are born either male or female.
Uh-huh.
But there is variations. That doesn't mean it's worse. And we respect it just as much.
Yeah.
But that's not what they do. That's not what a lot of the TikToks are about. They're not, it's a
Sure.
lot.
I know this because I've been around longer than you have, and what I have always noticed is that the
Barely.
beginning of any movement, people are very radical and very, I don't know what the right word is, but
But
you know, and then it kind of like joins reality more, and I think that
yeah,
that's
yeah. Like I said, the Democratic politicians, that I feel like by and large, they do live in reality. They're in it more for the right reasons. They're more likely to be policy wonks and actually know the details. Republicans, very few of them ever like know any detail. That's just not where their mind goes. Bush, Reagan, Trump, you think of them and you don't think of them like really mastering the subject like Obama, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton. They were wonks, and that's what you really need to be an effective governor of the country or the state. But like Clinton and Obama, which are our last two successful Democratic presidents, two-term, both of them went much more toward the middle. That was their success. And I don't see anybody anymore going toward the middle.
The mythical middle. Bill, what even is the middle anymore? When one side is banning books and the other is fighting for healthcare, the middle looks more like a no man's land. Sure, compromise sounds great in theory, but one party refuses to even acknowledge basic science or civil rights. What's there to compromise on? The middle isn't always a solution, it's sometimes just a place to get stuck.
The Trump people, they just go toward being as big a dick as we can.
Mm.
We'll have a rally and like
let me just
say awful things and call her a whore, just disgusting.
okay, we're facing a climate crisis.
Oh, that too.
And we, according to science, I believe in paying attention to the science. We don't have a lot of time to do something about it. There comes a point where the tipping points happen,
Absolutely.
and then there's nothing we can do. It's out of our control. And we don't have a lot of time between now and the tipping points, okay? Which is stop all new fossil fuel development, cut our emissions in half very quickly, and then gradually phase out. That would probably be considered, maybe even by you, as radical.
Well, it doesn't even matter because it's never going to happen. That's just not something humans are willing to do.
It's going to have to happen,
No, it's
or there's no future for us.
well, first of all, that's not necessarily true. I've always been on your page.
Well, then how can you say that
well,
isn't necessarily true?
I'll get to it if you let me.
Okay.
Okay. First of all, the problem with tipping points, which I totally am on the page. There is a tipping point, and it could be tomorrow. We don't know. But the problem with that argument is that they have been saying it for a long time and made tipping point predictions that we've passed. That doesn't mean it's not going to happen because I agree, it is going to happen. It's just common sense. You can't do what we're doing. We know how it changes the atmosphere. Most of the discussion in the last year has been about there are like 4 or 5 new methods they've come to, you know, maybe AI had something to do with it, I don't know, but that are coming online, carbon capturing type of stuff.
Right. We can't
Well,
depend on that.
we can't. We can't. My question always is, we tried, people should be better. And they're like, fuck you. And that's just Americans. What about the Chinese and the Indians who that's most of the planet. And for years, they didn't have cars and air conditioning because they were poor. But they've been lifted out of poverty by the hundreds of millions, and now they want cars and air conditioning. Are you going to tell them, rich white lady, sorry, we used up all the air, and now you can't have these things? They're going to go, fuck that. You
No.
guys enjoyed it, and we're going to have it
No.
now.
What we do is the simplest and the least expensive thing, which is we bring solar to them. You know, the powers that be want to bring nuclear, which is a disastrous.
You made a movie about it.
Yeah, it's a terrible idea, and it certainly won't solve the climate crisis. It takes at least 10 to 20 years to build a reactor. No, we bring them inexpensive, locally controlled solar energy and electric cars. We haven't lived up to our promises of giving them money, and we need to give the Global South money so they can do these things. They don't have to go through the same.
Again, people are going to give, you know, even liberals when they're polled about this, and even when they say, like, agreeing with us that this is a crisis, and then the next question is, and what would you pay in a year to address this crisis? And the answer is like $10 or maybe 100. Not close to the money we're talking about. I mean,
but we have to get in a government that will give the money that we're talking about.
well, you have to vote.
We have to make sure that that part of the world that needs development like we've had, we have to offer them the new way of developing. You don't have to go right through. You know, it's like there are countries that left over feudalism. They don't have to go through fossil fuels to get to a sustainable energy source. We can, yeah.
But I mean, darling, this would have to be passed by Congress. We can't transfer trillions of dollars, especially to other nations, by fiat, unless we become a dictatorship, which...
That's why voting is so important. We have to elect people who understand, be they Republicans or Democrats, that we're in a crisis, and we have to do everything we can, and we have to say, what?
I know, but I'm telling you, nobody in Congress is going to vote for that, because they would have to answer to their constituents who would be saying, why are you saying that my taxes have to go up 60%
Let me tell you
to
something.
India?
Listen.
That's just going to happen in America. You know that.
We, taxpayers, including poor people, out-of-work people all across this country, are giving $20 billion to the fossil fuel industry every year. Think what that money could do. $20 billion could go to Africa, South America, the places that want to develop and solve their problems. We're paying for that. The people that are killing us are getting our money to do it. So we stop that, stop the subsidies, and put it to helping the rest of the world. You know what I mean?
I'm not opposed to your plan. I'm just saying it's not a plan that will ever get passed. So why obsess about it? Maybe what we should do, I'm sorry to say it, I always resisted it, is yes, we might have to invent our way out of this. And it looks...
Invent our way out of this? Classic Bill kicking the can down the road. Sure, technology can help, but waiting for some magical innovation while ignoring actionable solutions is peak complacency. We already have tools, solar, wind, cutting emissions, but we don't use them because the fossil fuel industry throws a tantrum. Bill's let's just invent stuff approach is like saying you'll start eating healthy after they invent calorie-free donuts. Nice idea, but not realistic.
I'm telling you, all the articles this year, not from right-wing sources, this is in the New York Times, are actually very promising. There's like 5 new, which kind of makes sense because we are getting, I mean, with AI especially, the amount of scientific questions that elude us is going to decrease exponentially.
And there you have it, Bill Maher walking the line between cynicism and nostalgia while Jane Fonda tries to inject some urgency into the conversation. What do you guys think? Is Bill onto something, or is he just making excuses for inaction? Drop your thoughts in the comments, smash that like button, and don't forget to subscribe for more bold takes and deep dives. We'll see you guys in the next one.